Triangle square, yeah? Bloody hell.
Can you describe how you identify the Injil?
Triangle square, yeah?
Can you describe,
Triangle square, yeah?
Can you describe how you identify the Injil outside of the Quran?
No, we want to talk about triangle square first.
No. Triangle. You know what I'm gonna do now? From now on, the Dawah table.
You're stuck on
from
triangles and
the
squares?
front table. Yes, because you don't even know basic shapes. A 3-year-old knows basic shapes. You guys don't know basic shapes.
You still stuck on that?
Maybe you can do better than him.
He's still stuck on
Can
that.
you do better than him?
I don't know if he heard me.
Can
man.
you do better than him?
How do you identify the Injil
Can
outside of the
you do
Quran?
better than him? Look, if any Christian,
How
if
do
any
you
Christian,
identify the Injil outside the Quran?
if any Christian can answer the dependent-independent thing, I will discuss any topic with them. But please, just basic common sense. Can a triangle be square?
If you answer my question,
No, my condition from day one.
Logic is coming,
Look,
bro.
logic,
if you want to do a round three,
round three.
If you want to do a round three with him, that's on you.
Look. You guys believe Jesus died and he got resurrected.
Oh my
no
God.
logic. He got rinsed here 2-3 days
what
ago.
happened in Islam?
Then he got resurrected. Then he got buried again yesterday.
What happened to Jesus in
Please,
Islam?
let's go, man.
What happened
now,
to Jesus in Islam?
Can you have a triangle square?
Why you don't answer questions?
Triangle square. No, I am. Look, this.
And then when I walk, but then when I
this
walk
is Tawheed and Trinity.
But Ali,
of course you're gonna walk off.
No.
Of course you're gonna walk
when I walk off,
off. Because you're
don't
scared.
say, where am I going?
You're scared. You're scared. Because you're already planning on walking off. He's already
I
defeated.
came up to you.
He's admitted defeat already. You know someone before they go into the ring? Yeah, he's gonna smash me.
What happened?
He's gonna smash me. How am I gonna exit the ring? He's already thinking about that. Triangle square.
Focused,
I am. I'm focused. I'm fully
focused.
I am fully focused.
How do you identify the Injil outside of the Quran? Or what happened to Jesus in Islam?
What's the core beliefs of our religion? What's yours? And look, mine is Tawheed. I'll tell you. Tawheed, the oneness God. I'll even quote to you. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ
I have a
أَحَدٌ
specific
Allahu
question.
samad lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Say he, Allah is one.
Ali Dawah.
Self-sufficient. He does not beget nor is he begotten, and there's nothing like him.
I have a
That's my
specific
religion.
question.
That's my doctrine. What is yours?
I have a specific question. Are you able to answer this?
Tell me your doctrine. I want to know your core
I'm
belief.
asking you about your doctrine.
Yes, okay, our doctrine
How
is
do you
Tawheed.
identify the Injil?
Tawheed. Injil.
I'm not trying to talk to you about Tawheed, bro.
Of course, but Tawheed and Trinity.
You didn't want to talk about Tawheed with logic. You
of
ran.
course I did. No, I didn't. I spoke
Then why
about
did
it.
you run?
I spoke about it.
No,
Tawheed.
you talked about it.
I
and
spoke about Tawheed.
You never got corrected.
Listen. Corrected on. All right, you correct me. You correct me. You correct me.
I just said I don't want to talk about it.
Exactly, because you can't talk about it. You're weak.
What?
You can't talk about it. You're weak. You can't.
No.
You can't.
All right, so you want to talk about
Tell
Tawheed?
me, yes.
Okay, so when Logic gets here, you can talk about
Thank you.
Tawheed
I
like
thought
you
so.
ran away from him yesterday.
I thought so. There you go.
Thank you.
You're scared.
I already told you I don't want to talk about Tawheed.
You're scared.
I'm scared.
You're
You
scared.
ran away from my
You
question.
can't even talk about the Trinity and Tawheed. Trinity and Tawheed.
How do you identify the
debate?
Bro,
Yeah.
no, forget that, bro. It's
How do you identify the Injil outside of the
It's like
Quran?
me speaking to a Jew or a Hindu. They don't want to talk about the fundamental belief of their faith. I'm like, brother, let's talk about the fundamentals.
Talked to you about it
no,
yesterday.
You haven't. Tawheed. What is wrong with one? Independent. Look. Do you believe God is independent? Is God independent? God dependent. Is God dependent or independent?
How do you identify the Injil outside of the Quran?
I'm talking about Tawheed.
And I'm talking about the Injil.
I'm talking about Tawheed and Trinity. I'm talking about who God is.
Dude.
The one that sent the Injil, he's saying, no, I want to talk about the book.
You have no specific topic here.
I thought so.
I came up to you. I said, I got a question
Bro,
for you. Let's talk.
You came up to me. I could even.
You're ignoring my question.
I can ignore you, but I'm
Okay,
entertaining you.
You can ignore me. I can ignore you.
Exactly. So I'm saying to you, my topic here is Trinity and Tawheed.
This is bad, Ali.
Trinity and Tawheed.
This is bad, Ali.
I let the people decide.
You already talked about Tawheed. And
No.
you already talked about the Trinity.
Why are you scared? Why are you scared?
I can't talk about
He
Trinity.
talked
Exactly.
Wait, did he not talk about the Trinity yesterday?
Tell him I'm a coward.
Sam.
Yeah.
Sam. Did he not talk? Sam. Did he not talk about the
Say you're scared. Say you're
Then we
scared.
can go.
Say you're scared. Say you're
Did he
scared.
not talk about the Trinity
Say
yesterday?
you're scared. But that's
Thank
all.
you.
Why would I not talk about that?
No answers. No answers.
If I talk with a Jewish person, I will speak about
You talked about
God.
it with my brother yesterday. I don't need to do that.
When I speak to a Jew, I will talk about his belief in God. When I speak to a Hindu, I ask him about
I'm
God.
gonna set up my camera, man,
I thought so,
and then I'll be back.
I thought so.
All right.
I thought so.
I'm
There you go.
gonna get you running in HD. All right.
The question was, how do Muslims identify the Injil outside the Quran? Outside of the Quran.
Okay. Yesterday, no logic.
So outside the Quran,
My comments
the Bible
flooded, and that's how you know.
is a reference
So why? Because if you truly
that that some Muslims use to establish all kinds of things. Daniel 2, Matthew, or the prophecies of Jesus. As in No, the prophecies of no Muslims.
Oh yeah, we chilling.
Indicating to the Prophet Muhammad. So the Torah and
Make sure you check that.
are references to things outside of the Quran.
Okay.
All right, see. Yeah.
So the Testaments, like the New Testament,
Right.
bits and bobs from the New Testament.
Right. Okay. So now, what information have you got to know that you're supposed to go to bits and pieces or the New Testament in the first place? What information do you have to know that that is true and that's a position or a place that you need to go to identify the Injil? Where are you getting that?
Yeah. Well, the first, and I said this to, I've got the American brother, the one who lives there. Anyway, I was talking to him about it, and I explained to him that, well, the basis for Muslim is the Quran. That's the basis. That's like steering ship, and within the ship there's like a manual inside, and it tells you that the Bible, the Injil, to be particular here, is the book that was given to Jesus Christ. And there are references within the Quran that says go back to the people of the book. Go back to the people of the book to confirm that which is given to them.
Now, using the Quran, does it establish what book that is, or does it just mention a book?
It mentions a book.
Right.
Well, the Injil.
Yeah, the Injil, but it gives no detail on what that book is.
Not really. Well, with Jesus Christ, not really. Not really.
So when it mentions, you can find Muhammad in the Torah and the Injil, chapter 7, verses 157. Where would you go to find Muhammad?
So, just on top of my head, from the verses that I understand within the Quran, when they do reference back to the people of the book, the referential nature isn't as specific either, because it talks about if you're in doubt of which we have sent, which is again a very generic.
Yeah, very vague. Yeah,
very vague.
Very vague, very open for interpretation. Yeah.
So it doesn't specify on what it is that you ought to look in from the people of the book.
Yeah.
However, if you combine all the verses together, it usually refers back to the theology and sort of the main message.
In the background.
Going back to Abraham.
Right. So now, if it's referring back to a message going back to Abraham, and when you're supposed to find Muhammad in these scriptures, what text are you supposed to go to? If it's very vague and open for interpretation, what text are you supposed to go to, and how do you know?
Well, you can teach me actually. Is there a specific verse in the Quran that says that the Prophet Muhammad is confirmed in the Bible? Is there something? It says
you can find his description written in the Torah and the Injil. That's chapter 7, verses 157.
Let me have a look at
that. It says you can find his description. Chapter 7, verses 157.
I think I Okay, so those who follow the message of religion of the message of the Prophet can read or write. I, Muhammad, creates a description described in the Torah and Gospel which are with them. You will join on them, which describe Allah's provides oneness and moral excellence.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
So you see, now if I were to ask you, provide me the verses that establish his description, let's just go with the Injil, because it says both the Torah and the Injil.
That's correct.
Let's just go with the Injil first.
Yeah.
Where would you go to find his description?
Yeah. Is there not like a prophecy in Matthew?
Is there?
I mean, Matthew, right? Well, that's what the Muslims claim. They say
exactly. Yeah.
So you don't agree with that?
Now here's what I ask: is Matthew the Injil?
Yeah, I mean, so the thing with the Injil is that, okay, the way I've learned about dealing with the Bible is that We don't entirely specify what the Injil is because we believe that the Injil was something that Jesus was teaching to the people. And the Gospels that we have today have reminiscences of the teachings of like a primary.
Well, let me show you how that's problematic. If you're saying that we don't have the Injil, but you're saying that we have reminiscences of it, well then how do you know to go back to whatever you just claimed to try to find the Injil?
May I finish? Because I'm trying to define what is that we go through. So we say one, this reminiscence of Jesus teaching primary source, meaning it's literally Jesus' speech, right? Then we have the secondary accounts of Jesus' teaching. So people who met Jesus, or people who met people that met Jesus, or no. So very similar to like the Hadith literature that we have. And then there's the third category within the corpus of the Christians. We would say it's something that, if it goes against what the Quran teaches, that we reject that.
So basically, what I'm hearing is that whatever I present to you, and I say it's the gospel, then you're just going to tell me it is or it isn't based on what you read in your Quran?
Yes.
Well, that's not knowing what the Injil is. That's just telling me whatever sounds good to you is the Injil.
Well, remember, the Injil is also a term that appears in a particular book, which is the Quran. The Injil is not in...
But it's a specific book that says that Muhammad is described in it.
Yeah, but the authority to even look into the Injil, the knowledge about knowing about the Injil is all captured within the Quran.
No, that's what essentially what you've done is you made what you read in the Quran your standard of what you know is okay for you to accept. That's not you knowing what the Injil is, that's you accepting what you hear is okay in regards to specific positions or statements that you hear from whatever book that I present to you. For example, if I present to you the Infancy Gospel of Thomas, and I show you that the story of the clay bird is actually found in in the Infancy Gospel of Thomas, would you say that the Infancy Gospel of Thomas contains some of the Injil too?
Well, that's the argument I was trying to make here. So it's a fair critique that you're making. You're basically saying, well, you're just using your bias because you're using the Quran as determining what is the Injil and what isn't. But, and I agree with you, that's a fair critique. But I think before we go there, the only reason why we're discussing the word Injil in itself is because it is in the Quran. Now, if I was to ask you and say, is the word Injil, does it appear outside the Quran anywhere else? Does it? That word? Where?
It does. Where? So the word Injil means good news.
Yeah.
So that is literally what is referred to the Gospels.
No, I'm not saying translation wise. I'm saying the word itself, Injil.
I'm not familiar with the Arabic word Injil inside, but I would say that that's somewhat irrelevant to the conversation.
No, it is relevant. It's relevant.
It's referring to a book.
No, it's relevant because.
So are you saying that the book needs to be titled the Injil?
No, it is relevant. Because when you speak about the Gospels, you're speaking about something very, very specific, right? You're talking about a specific source of information that exists.
The good news of Jesus Christ.
That's correct. Right. Now, the Injil is something that the Quran is telling its own version of what Jesus' teaching was.
Right.
So it's the word Injil is tied to the Quran.
But that's the problematic part. You said the Quran is telling its own version. What do you mean telling its own version? It should be talking about the version of the Injil, not its own version. I understand that there's a split because there's a difference in what the Christians and the Jews claim the Gospels were, the Injil is. So now it's, okay, well then the Quran must be talking about something else? That's actually not the case because the must be talking about something else doesn't exist in Islam.
I'm just saying that the Quran is a third party that enters the conversation and says, well, hold on, I'm looking at the same scene from camera A. Both of you are looking at it from camera B and C. That's the point I'm trying to make.
But would it be fair for me to say that it's making an incorrect position because what it's talking about doesn't exist? You guys would even say it doesn't exist. You don't have it. Right? So if I bring up, for example, if I come to you and I say, yeah, man, I follow this prophet. He talks about the good news of Muhammad, right? And it said that Jesus was crucified. It says that it said, and I'm giving theology that's different from what you find in the Quran. And you ask me, okay, well, where's the information for this? Where is this presented? Then you turn around. And, actually, you ask me, where's the information? What's presented? Where can you show me where it is? And I say, oh, it's been lost. I don't know. It's been lost. And then you say, well, then what good news of Muhammad are you talking about? Because we have it here. We have it in the Quran. We have it here. And then I say, well, we're talking about something else. But then I pose that something else that doesn't exist, that I don't have any evidence for, as something that exists. And now I have to put you in a position to defend something that I never presented any evidence for. And everything that I go to is something that I have to cherry pick and I disagree with. That's exactly what Muslims do when it comes down to the Injil. You quoted Matthew, but if I go anywhere in Matthew and show you what Jesus said, you're probably going to say, no, I don't believe he said that. But apparently you believe some of the Injil is in Matthew. That makes no sense. And the conclusion from my point is that you don't really know what the Injil is. You just make it whatever you want for whatever feels good to you.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. So the basis, the most integral piece of information or source for a Muslim, if you talk to a Muslim, it's always going to be the Quran, meaning the Quran is the basis. Now, from the Quran, we move and establish, because the Quran itself identifies itself and says, I am the Quran, meaning I am the determining arbiter of telling an alternative story. Obviously, I'm saying alternative.
It doesn't say it's telling an alternative story, but I will say that the stories that it's retelling are altered.
I'm saying alternative because I'm trying to be objective. I'm talking to you.
Well, this is because you see the stories altered, given to you in an altered way.
No, it's just a different version of this exact same event. That's the function of the Quran. It's like that's what the Quran does.
Which would mean that the story being retold is altered.
Altered as in changed.
Yes.
Okay, I mean alternative as in version. That's what I mean. There is a different version of an account that has taken place.
Right. So when you see the Quran telling a different version of an account that took place, do you automatically think that it's talking about a different book, or do you automatically think that it's wrong? Which position do you go with?
Well, it depends from where you are looking from. I mean, if you're Christian, you obviously will say it's wrong because the Bible precedes the Quran. So you're like, how can a book that comes 600 years later tell me of what the account was?
Well, that's not what it is. I mean, it's not just because I'm a Christian. It's because we can go to that account that's told in our scriptures and know that the Quran is retelling the story wrong. So we know that the Quran, from that standpoint alone, is false. It doesn't matter if you're Christian or not, because if the Quran is retelling a story that's retold, that's told in a book already first, right? We have the earliest known recordings of those stories. But it has nothing to do with being Christian. It has everything to do with biblical evidence, factual evidence, something that we can read tangibly. And the Quran is posing something that we can't go fact check or verify. It's just making a statement about something that happened before it in a book that happened before it that you guys can't find.
I mean, I'm talking to a Christian.
Okay.
So that's why I said But the point I'm trying to make is, now, I don't feel rattled by the idea of this, because if you think about the historical, just the historicity and the historical making of the Bible, then how the Quran approaches this, it gives leeway to assert that type of message, because the Bible itself.
Not necessarily.
Why? I haven't even finished. I haven't.
Go ahead. I hear you.
Because my argument is, if you look at like the history around the Bible coming together, we know, for example, it's historical accounts of various periods, different people, different regions. And then there's a threshold where authority comes in, and then authority squeezes and eradicates, what is the Bible, like the Gospel of Thomas is X'd out, right? And then that accumulative history creates what the Bible is today. This is one of the reasons why I always say to the Muslims as well, as a Muslim, it is a false equivalency to compare the Bible to the Quran, because the Bible has a different history. the way that the Bible comes to existence is totally different.
Well, what history is the Bible? I mean, what history is the Quran discussing? Because the
claim of the book itself.
I understand that, but if you claim that the Quran in the Bible are not comparable, then why does the Quran discuss issues, religious history in regards to the previous scriptures, and you guys derive that information from the Bible and then turn around and take what you want and push out what you don't like? So I understand your issue with biblical history, but respectfully, it's kind of coming from an inaccurate position of what somebody else told you. These stories are not inaccurate just because you hear a difference in your Quran. That doesn't give you the right to just come to the Bible and tear it down because you don't have any evidence for what your Quran is talking about.
Well, I think it's polemicists who make the comparison between the two books. But if you actually listen to what the Quran is doing, is the Quran is referencing. It's like referential almost.
While at the same time saying that the same God revealed those scriptures. So if that same God revealed those scriptures and he's referencing his own scriptures, but he gets it wrong, well then who's right or who's wrong?
So when it says reference, remember we both established that the reference isn't necessarily detailed or laser focused, and it's more generic.
But if if Allah refers to his own scriptures and he gets this story wrong, that means that it's not from Allah, right?
Well, the assumption is that the person that opens up the Quran and believes in the Quran and believes that the Quran is from God, then believes that God is given the actual account of what took place. That's the theology. I'm just telling you the theology.
Right.
You may disagree with that.
Right. So that means that if someone is given that theological position, that means that they've closed the door and said, I'm going to read the Quran and I'm going to just make it true. So when I see something different, it's automatically false. But that's not a fair position to the actual scriptures, because remember, your Quran is pointing back to something. This is the reason why when I ask Muslims, can you identify the Injil? They immediately go down to tearing down the Bible so they don't have anything to identify. And subconsciously, I think this is what you've done.
Do you
remember the earlier position was identify the Injil, not tear down the Bible. The whole time you've been trying to give me a position about how the Bible isn't authentic and how these positions
I
are.
didn't say that.
No, some of them, okay. Let me fix that. Not the entire time, but just more so recently. That's the position that you've took upon, which is let me segue over into showing the inauthenticity of the Bible.
Okay, I'm not.
So now let's go back to identifying the Injil.
May I restate my position?
Okay,
Okay, I may have a different approach to Ali and everyone else. I personally am not too interested in weakening the Bible or lessening the Bible, because I don't think that it necessarily makes my point stronger. What I like to do is to be very specific that the way I view the Bible is there is almost three ways, meaning the teachings of Jesus, who you will find in the Bible, then the accounts of the account of Jesus you will find in the Bible, and then also...
But which accounts though? Because you got to remember,
for example,
there's a specific way that you're... Remember what I told you, there's a specific way that you're coming at the Gospels, which is unfair to the text. Why are you coming to the Gospels in the first place? That's the point. How do you identify the Injil? Muslims go to the Gospels, they don't even understand why they're going there. They just go there, grab historical information, throw the rest of the book out, and then talk about the Bible and put it down.
I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong. I think it's a wrong methodology.
But you've been doing it.
No, I'm not. If I'm doing it, then I have to express myself in a better way. So, for example, I can give you an example, right, of an account of an account. What I believe is an account of an account. The Gospel of John, for example, best example, right? Within the Gospel of John, if you read the source, you'll find that John or passages in John speak about Jesus in the third person account. So, meaning when he speaks about the Pharisees going to the blind man and then asking the blind man about Jesus, and then he says, what's wrong with you? He's a prophet. Well, do you believe in him or what? You know, like he questions them and they get freaked out by that, that he possibly could be what he's saying he is, right? So to me, that's fascinating from a historical point of view, because it seems as if John is giving us an account, like if you think of a camera, it's going through Jerusalem And it's not going to Jesus directly, but it's going to the people who met Jesus.
Yeah.
And those people are telling us about Jesus.
Right. But what part of the historical evidence that you get about Jesus from John is true and what's not? If you go into John and you say, "Oh wow, I like this story,"
yeah,
but then he also tells you that he was crucified, and you say, "Oh, I don't like this story." Why are you doing that?
Well, you do know that when it comes to crucifixion, even within the Islamic paradigm, there's like difference of opinion as to what
we can get in that, but why do you have an issue with the crucifixion aside from the story about Jesus and the Pharisees? I don't
have a personally. I don't have an issue with the crucifixion.
So you believe Jesus was crucified?
I don't believe in it.
So you have an issue with it?
No, I don't have an issue as long as it's not made to be tied into theology, because meaning
so you have an issue with it?
No.
It's a theological claim for salvation.
Because there are certain interpretations from the Quranic perspective that Jesus may have been crucified.
That's the point that I'm making. So what is your issue with the crucifixion? The Quran.
Well, not the crucifixion itself, but the theology tied to it. It's theological.
You're essentially saying the same thing.
No, I'm not. I'm saying.
So you're okay
if Jesus was crucified.
You're okay with Jesus being crucified, but as long as it's not a biblical theological claim, it's just a story somebody told.
No. Meaning there was people who wanted to harm him.
It's either he was crucified or he wasn't.
No, but trying to understand what I'm trying to say. I'm saying if he was crucified and it actually took place, and he was crucified because he was hated, and there was people who wanted to stop him from spreading the message, then that will happen. But when you say he was crucified in order to cleanse the sins of the world, you see that we're talking about the same scenario.
You'd have a problem either way, because your Quran says he wasn't crucified at all. So why would you be okay with him being crucified for a salvation issue or non-salvation?
The wording is flexible. There's some scholars, and that's the majority of the opinion, they say he wasn't crucified. And that's a very small amount of scholars who say he was crucified. And then there's another group of people say he was replaced.
But the Quran specifically says he wasn't crucified.
Well, because they say, the people who believe that he may have been crucified say that before death came to him from the people, God took his soul. So they weren't able to kill him. God took his soul before they weren't even able to harm him. That's how they square it.
So he was placed on a cross.
Yeah, some scholars say he was placed on a cross. However, the people who were trying to harm him failed in their mission.
How?
Because God took his soul before.
Where are you getting this from?
I'm saying it's an Islamic position.
Outside of the Quran?
No, it's reading the verses.
No. It's an Islamic
small
position outside of the Quran. The Muslims want to place him on the cross to try to have some sort of theological position that matches with the Gospels, so they can kind of run away from the position. But they would still have an issue with the salvation and also the scriptures claiming that he was actually crucified and he resurrected. So the issue is that your Quran says that he was neither killed nor crucified, which means that man was not on the cross, and it appeared as if he was, meaning that he was not on the cross, and he was not killed, and he was not crucified.
That's one interpretation, yes.
That's literally what the verse says. There's no way to...
No, I'm telling you, that's one interpretation amongst the Islamic exegesis. I can recommend you a lecture. It's by Ali Attai on the crucifixion. Okay. And he breaks it down.
I've read it before. You want to know another position? That a young boy asked to be crucified for Jesus.
Yes.
Allah made him look like Jesus and put a young boy on the cross. So which one is it? You guys are all over the place.
No,
but your Quran says that we're the one in conjunction.
No, remember, it's not all over the place because...
So what happened?
It's not a theological... what's it called? It's not a theological... It's not of theological importance from the Quranic perspective.
It is if your Quran is pointing you back to the Injil, which you guys point to try to prove Muhammad.
No, because those verses are just descriptive of the event of what took place, not necessarily a responsa to the Christian theology.
It's a direct refutation to what the Christians are claiming happened to Jesus.
Well, from my reading, from when I read it, it seems like it's just describing an event that took place, and therefore, and this is the reason why you have
it's describing how an event didn't take place.
That's one interpretation, and that's the reason.
That's literally what it says. They killed him not. They neither killed him nor crucified him.
I understand you take that position.
Yeah, it was made to appear so.
I'm just telling you that there are Muslim scholars very early on. They had different ways to understand that verse because of the structure of the sentence.
But everybody has opinions. That doesn't mean that what they're saying is true.
They're not opinions that are just made up. They're based
so is it true? Which one is true? Is it the little boy or was he on the cross?
Personally, I believe that Jesus wasn't crucified. That's
well, so you believe he wasn't on the cross at all? They never put him on the cross?
I believe that he was replaced. That's like
okay, thank you. So let's talk about that position instead of other people's positions you don't agree with.
No, it's not that I don't agree with. It's not that I agree with. It's just that one there, I feel more stronger.
So let's talk about the.
But I could be wrong.
Okay,
I could be wrong.
All of those opinions are wrong.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the one that you accept.
Yeah.
The one that you accept is that he wasn't on the cross, he was replaced.
Yeah.
Thank you. So when you go into Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, as soon as you mention John, you know John mentioned this. So what is your issue with accepting the story of the Pharisees and rejecting the story of his crucifixion?
What does Matthew say about the crucifixion?
It says that he was crucified and rose again on the third day.
Okay.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all records Jesus' crucifixion, death, burial, and resurrection. So when you mention you mentioned Matthew and you mentioned John. Both of these books say that Jesus was crucified. So why, as a Muslim who can't really identify the Injil, go to the Gospels, try to make it the Injil when they feel like it, and then reject everything else with no bearing on what you're doing except for, well, it just doesn't agree with my Quran. That's all I'm getting.
Well, when you say that the Muslim just kind of goes with whatever they feel,
that's true.
Like what on what basis you saying that?
Well, you just agreed with that point earlier when I asked you, well, does the infancy Gospel of Thomas contain some of the Injil because the story of the clay bird is in there?
Yeah.
So does the infancy Gospel of Thomas contain some of the Injil? Because you don't find that in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Yeah.
You find that in an infancy Gospel. So let me hear you say it. Is that part of the Injil or no?
So that's the great not mystery actually. Mystery is a wrong word, but that's something that I obviously have to look into more. But from the readings I've done about the relationship between the Quran and the previous books, it seems as if the Quran, again, being the base and being the foundation.
The foundation of what? Your beliefs.
As a Muslim, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It talks about previous events and it mentions events that are very well known. For example, the boys in the cave, Moses, his event with the Pharaoh.
And plenty of those stories are found in stories that aren't true as well.
That's correct. Joseph, Alexander, all these things.
Yeah, Joseph, Zechariah, Jesus, Mary. Yeah, there's plenty of retold stories in your Quran, and a lot of them are retold incorrectly.
And then there are stories that are less well known and appear in, like you said, the Gospel of Infancy. Sometimes the Quran responds to the Midrash, not even to the Talmud or the Torah.
So where's your? But here's the thing. Where's your argument? Where's your argument?
I'm building my point.
Yeah.
So I'm saying the Quran almost is saying to the people, look, I'm going to talk about the Champions League that everyone has watched, and I will retell my story of what it was. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell about like minute details that not everyone knows about, and I'm responding to very specific people.
No,
I can give you an example of that.
It's not.
No, that's
the Quran isn't adding detail. It's you have a guy who heard a story from somewhere, didn't remember it all the way, retold the story, told it incorrect, and now Muslims are making it seem like, he got revelation and he was adding to it. For example, what kind
of... You don't believe it's revelation. That's
what Muslims do.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it problematic, is because you guys are trying to find your way out of the fact that he got this information wrong. Let me tell you how he got information wrong. The story of Zechariah. How long could he not speak before John was born?
Was it 3 days?
3 days. The original account says he couldn't speak for the entire term of the pregnancy. Is that adding information, or is that literally getting the story wrong? You can't mix up 3 days in the entire term of the pregnancy.
Yeah. Okay, so So, for example, let me give you an example. Yeah, what I mean.
Which one is right? Let's just before you give me an example. Which one is right?
I believe the Quran is from Allah, so I believe what the Quran is saying is right.
That's it.
Yeah.
So it's not because you know that this story was actually told this way. It's just the Quran said so, so it's right automatically.
Because when I look at the history of the Bible and I see how the Bible was handled, and this is not a critique on the Bible, it's just the way it was, right? It's been handled over many years by different types of people, and those people sometimes are not even necessarily connected, you know, by geography or time, you know. So it's not intergenerational, meaning there's one generation that precedes another generation. And
according to who?
I mean, if you look at the Bible history, I mean, there's just the Bible containing itself. If you think about Jesus Christ and who comes before him, or the gaps between Jesus Christ and Moses, it's about 1,000 years, is it? 1,000 years?
What's the gap between Moses and Muhammad?
2,000 years.
So what's the issue?
No, I'm saying because those scriptures are treated as one, right? Okay. They're together. They're like genealogically speaking together, right? Whereas the Quran is an entirely different book. I'm saying
doesn't claim to be an entirely different book.
What?
It does. The Quran doesn't separate itself from the Torah and the Gospels.
Well, it does. It does.
No, it doesn't.
Of course, it says it.
No, it doesn't. In chapter 2, verses 2 through 5, it says the rightfully guided Muslim are the ones who believe in all of what Allah has revealed. Does that sound like it's separating itself?
No, but again, you're taking a verse that is generic.
What? That's the Quran.
No. What is the Quran saying?
Those would be the rightfully guided ones who believe in all of what Allah has revealed. Meaning, and it says...
it's generic.
No. The specific verse says what was revealed to Muhammad generic. And what was revealed before him.
Exactly.
So what was revealed before Muhammad?
Huh?
What was revealed
all
before
the books?
Thank you. So it says the right...
Does it say Daniel? Does it say John? Does it say Matthew? No.
You guys do.
No, I'm not saying you guys do. I'm saying what the Quran... We're talking about the Quran, right?
Yeah.
The Quran doesn't do that.
So now... So it's
very generic.
But here's the thing. This is the position...
Very generic.
Right. But this is the issue that I have. If there's a position now when you're forced to try to know what the book is, then you go to it. Then now when you're forced to give an example that you don't like, now all of a sudden what are those books though?
You have to take everything because you bought one verse, but you have to take another verse also.
But your answer to my point,
you have to take everything.
But let me just say this though, real quick. Let me just say this. Your answer to my point just now was we don't know what those books are.
No, I didn't say that.
You said it doesn't name it. What is John? What is Daniel? What is this? You just said that.
I didn't say you can't talk about a verse that says all and then say what it is referring to.
I'm asking you, and your response was I don't know. What is this? What is this? What is this?
I just corrected you and said that verse is not specifying any books in specifically. Because if I say the book of Daniel,
don't you have to take the Quran holistically?
Yeah, that's one book.
Okay, thank you. So does Allah say he revealed the Torah?
Yeah.
Does Allah say he revealed the Injil?
Yeah.
Does Allah say he revealed the Zabur?
Yeah.
Does he say he revealed Abraham's scrolls?
Yeah.
Does he say he revealed the Quran?
That's correct.
Okay, does he say believe in all of what Allah has revealed?
Yeah.
So what would he be referring to?
Well, we don't say that.
Come on, man.
No.
Come on, bro.
No, how you define it? I want to know your definition. Define it. What does all mean?
If I reveal book 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I say believe in all of what I reveal, does that mean believe in book 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5?
No, but we haven't established what book 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is.
It doesn't matter. And you have to believe in them.
And this is where you make the mistake.
We have
to come back.
I got you.
I have to come back. I have to come back because otherwise you don't understand what I'm trying to say.
I understand it. And we're about to get there.
You don't.
Trust me. I'm gonna let you go. Trust me. I'm gonna let you go.
Because
for the example
the most important thing.
Let's just stay tight-knit on the example. Just really quick. For the example.
I asked you a question. You answered. Let me now come.
But you don't understand the example I gave. The example.
I asked you a question, right? And you answered, right?
I understand.
Now,
but you should come back outside. Really,
I should
trust me, brother. Trust me.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm not doing what you think I'm doing.
Yeah.
You added outside details that were not involved in the example yet. I know what you're talking about. I know what you're saying. All I'm asking you is a simple question. If I say it has nothing to do with knowing what the books are yet.
if I say I revealed book 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then later I say the rightfully guided ones are the ones who believe in all of what I revealed.
Yeah.
What books am I talking about? Am I talking about book 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5?
Okay, now I'm going to go back to the I want to understand your definition. So when we go to the verse in the Quran that says, and you said,
yeah, go ahead.
And those who are righteous,
the rightfully guided Muslims are the ones who believe in all of what Allah has revealed.
Okay, now your definition of that verse means book 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right?
That's literally what he says.
No, don't say literally.
Give me 2 through 5.
It's not literally because
I'm gonna read it.
It's not literally.
I'm gonna read it.
I understand that when you read that verse, that's what comes to your mind.
No, brother, we have to read it in context.
No. Hold on.
Because I'm paraphrasing and you think that...
Even if you're paraphrasing...
But I want to read it literally real quick.
I know.
Okay, go ahead.
It's still a definition that you are giving me. It's still a definition, but...
That's how the verse reads, brother.
No, it's a sentence. You're presenting a sentence and then you give me a definition.
Because that's what he says.
No, but I'm not accepting your definition.
He mentions what was revealed to Muhammad and what was revealed before him. We just established what was revealed before him.
I don't accept your definition of book 1, 2, or 3, or 5.
Why?
And the reason why, and this is why I've been trying to say for like 10 minutes, is because the Quran also calls itself Furqan. Why does it call itself Furqan?
That's irrelevant.
No,
that's irrelevant right now.
There's a whole chapter.
Before we get into that, I know where you're going. Yeah. Let's just read this really quick. Chapter 2, verses 2 through 5. This is the book where there is no doubt about it, a guide for those mindful of Allah.
Yeah.
Who believes in the unseen. Establish prayer, and donate from what we have provided them.
Yeah.
And who believe in what has been revealed to you and what was revealed before you and have sure faith in the hereafter. Look at this. And it is they who are truly guided by their Lord, and it is they who will be successful. So, in verse 4, and who believe in what has been revealed to you. What does that refer to?
The Quran.
Okay. And what was revealed before you? What does that refer to?
All the books. Okay.
And what are those books?
And I'm trying to say to you, those books, can we go back? Because, this is the thing. Let's read in context. Let's go to the previous books, right? The previous verses, yeah? This is the book, there's no doubt about it, a guide for those who are mindful of Allah, who believe in the unseen. Okay. Establish prayer, donate from what have been provided for them. Who believe in the unseen. You know what the unseen is?
Did you tell me?
The ghaib is in reference to things that are interdimensional, meaning things we can't see with our own eyes.
Are those the books?
It's very relevant.
Are the books interdimensional, something we've never seen?
Very relevant. I'm just teaching you.
But that's irrelevant to the point.
You wouldn't know if I haven't finished.
Go ahead.
So the unseen is anything that you can't see, the interdimensional world, meaning demons, angels. The unseen is also the future, meaning we can't see what's going to happen in the future. The unseen is also classified things of the past. Okay? So you believe in the unseen. Things of the past is also that defined as the unseen. Rape. Now, then the next verse goes, the books from where? The books that you have now and the books you have from the past. Okay?
So now, in accordance to that verse, is the Quran a book from the past?
No. Yeah, from our perspective.
Okay, thank you.
No.
So you're putting the Quran in the same position as those books. When you read it today, the Quran is a book from the past, right?
There's two sentences. One sentence is referring to the Prophet Muhammad and his people.
Okay.
And then obviously...
And the other one is referring to prophets for those people with books before. It's talking about the same things. Muhammad... and what happened to the prophets in the books before Muhammad?
No, but the verse is saying, the people who believe in that are believers. Not meaning the people who believed in it, but the people that are receiving the verse.
It has nothing to do with people receiving the books. It doesn't. It doesn't say that. It says believe. Okay, so
this verse,
when it says believe in all of what Allah has revealed, does that mean that I can believe in the Quran without ever seeing it?
No, but you have to focus on what
just answer that question. Can I believe in the Quran without ever reading it or seeing it?
You're missing the point of these verses actually. Look what the verse is saying to you.
It doesn't say believe in the unseen in regards to books that don't exist.
Of course. No, I didn't say that. You are saying that. You're saying that. I didn't say that.
Then where are the books you're supposed to believe?
Say that. I didn't say that.
Okay, then answer
You're saying that.
Where are the books that are supposed to exist that you're supposed to believe in as a Muslim to be successful?
Okay. Now, the Quran is al-Furqan.
Okay, we got that out the way. We know
Okay.
the Quran is right there.
Yeah,
Where are the
it's
rest?
the Furqan.
Where are the
Meaning,
rest?
So
No,
when
no,
you go,
I understand you're
Yeah.
saying the Quran is the Furqan.
Yeah.
Forget that right now.
No, but that's very important.
Okay, but where are the other books?
If the books aren't mentioned by name, if they're not specified, then I can't come. I don't have the authority.
Brother, come on, man.
No, it's not. But come on, I'm telling you something, and you don't want to hear it. That's fine. But I'm telling you, and I'm trying to be as honest as possible.
No, you not. Not at
I
this-
am
at this
because
point-
I could have easily lied. I could have said what other people say all the time. I'm not.
You're trying to act like the books. You don't know.
No.
You either don't know where they are, or you don't exist.
No,
don't know where
I-
they don't.
no.
They don't exist.
No. For people
or
who are
you
watching-
just don't know what the book
No.
is talking about no more.
No,
in that
for
sentence.
the people who are watching, early on I was speaking about the Gospel of John, which we know by name.
So is that one of the
Earlier
books it was
earlier
talking
I was
about?
talking about the Gospel of
All
Matthew.
right, but is that
and
one?
I-
But is that one of the
I-
books that the Quran is talking about?
And I, if the messaging within those books are in accordance with the Quran, then yeah.
Okay, thank you. So now I just proved your point.
That's
That
literally
you,
what-
wait.
yeah.
Now I just proved your point with what you asked me earlier. You said, how do Muslims just make whatever is the Injil? You asked, how do they do that? You just proved my point. I said you were doing it. You asked me to prove how you were doing it. You just did it now.
No, I told you that I agree with you that the basis for me is the Quran. I was very open about this. The basis for me is the Quran.
You said you listen.
Yeah.
So do you agree with my position then? That Muslims don't actually know what the Injil is? They just make whatever is presented to them the Injil.
We don't have the Injil. Where is it?
Okay, so answer the question
So
then.
we don't know exactly what the Injil is.
We know that, but I'm asking you,
Yeah.
if I present you something, are you just going to make it the Injil because it sounds like it matches with your Quran?
But that's what we're supposed to do as believers. That's
So
literally
the answer is yes.
Yeah, but that's what this verse is telling us to do.
The Quran didn't tell you to do that.
Of course, it says here. Look, and also,
The Quran didn't tell you to do that.
you know what?
That's you doing that on your own.
You know when it comes to literature, any types of literature, right?
All of it can be the Quran as long as it got something that matches with the Quran.
No, look, you're very quick. You're very quick. You're not having a conversation with me.
All right, brother, go ahead.
I'm saying any type of literature. If I give you Moby Dick today, right, and I go into Moby Dick, which is like seen as one of like the pinnacles of English literature, right, and there's one sentence in there, and I'm like, yo, this sentence is saying this about the captain and blah 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 blah, and you're so hung on hell-bent on it to prove a theological point on your side, you miss out entirely on what these verses are actually saying. So when I spoke to you and went through these verses, there was 3 verses.
Where we at?
There's 3 verses that all connected. You can't just surgically disconnect a verse. Because this is what you're doing. You take one verse, you're like, look, the Quran is telling me here, the people of the previous book, but you miss out on the previous book verses that's telling me about the unseen. I have to believe in the unseen. Which means the unseen are things that we don't know, including the previous books. We don't know them.
Okay, so how do you know?
Specificity.
Okay, so how do you
We're supposed
know?
to believe them.
Okay, so watch this.
Because that's part of theology.
I get that. So you just admitted that you just make whatever the Injil is the
No.
Injil that
No, the Quran is the basis.
you just.
It's not me. It's the Quran.
That's dude.
It's the Quran is the
Okay,
basis.
watch this.
It's not me.
Thank you. You're proving my point by saying the Quran is the basis.
Yeah.
Okay. The great
Me
treatise.
as a Muslim,
all right.
yeah, I agree.
The
Yeah,
great
me as a
treatise. Okay, thank you. So
Yeah.
the great treatise
Me as a Muslim.
Okay, so the great treatise of Seth has, it's the great or second, one of those, has the story of a swapped out Christ on the cross. Is that contain some of the Injil?
What's that? I don't know. I don't know.
It contains a swapped out. I'm just. You can look it up later.
What's the great view? What's that?
It's a story being told about Christ swapped out on the cross.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
does that you have a story about Christ? You guys believe he was swapped out? It was made to appear. That story appears elsewhere or before the Quran was even
Yeah.
revealed.
Yeah.
Does that contain some of the Injil?
Possibly not.
Okay, the Infancy Gospel of Thomas. Okay, the
Possibly not.
Infancy Gospel of Thomas has the story of the clay bird. Does that contain some of the Injil?
I would say so if it's in the Quran. Yeah.
Okay, the regular Gospel of Thomas has Jesus' statements from top to bottom, where Jesus makes a bunch of theological claims, like, for example, a man who basically hoarders a bunch of money, idolizes money over his soul, shouldn't do that. Does that part of the Injil?
It's in line. That's a possibility that Jesus said this because there's nothing wrong. It's a good message, I guess.
Okay, so at the
message
end,
is good.
okay, so at the end of that Gospel of Thomas, it says women need to become men in order to get into paradise, because women are not worthy of paradise.
Yeah.
Is that part of the Injil?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, so how do you know which? Okay, how do you know which is and which isn't a part of the Injil?
It's based upon the theology that I'm on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you're just making whatever is the Injil because it sounds good to you.
No, when you say whatever,
you don't even know if it's the Injil. It just sounds good.
Hold on. When you say whatever, you know how it sounds to the people. It sounds as if me personally, you give me any story and I'm just like, yeah.
That's literally what you just did.
I'm not doing that. I have a foundation.
What?
I have a foundation I'm tied to. That's literally what theology.
That's my point.
No, but the foundation I'm tied to is not arbitrary. It's not arbitrary. It's not just me making up stuff. It's not me as a media individual making up stuff.
You know what your foundation is? It's ever so changing.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. Because you don't really know what it is and what isn't. You're just making whatever is how you according to how you feel.
Well, it's not. It's like you're not asking me an opinion that warrants my own thinking.
I don't want your opinion. I want the fact about what the book is.
No. I'm saying when I say opinion, I mean you're asking me a question that isn't necessarily generated on my vices. Okay, that's what it means to just make whatever up. It's not generated on my vices. What I'm generating is tied to a tradition that is structured, I believe. It's a tradition that's structured that tells me how to live, how to be. Let me ask you this. Who God is, how God is.
But that tells me about paradise. Hold on. But that's irrelevant to the religious history that it attaches itself to.
It tells me about paradise. You know the question you asked me about women have to become man.
Yeah.
It tells me about paradise. It says, in paradise, this structure that I'm tied to, so it's not arbitrary, it's not random. This structure is telling me man and woman will get to paradise. So when I hear someone else, a story coming up to me saying, well, in this text it's telling me only men will go to paradise, then I'm saying, whoa, it goes against my dogma. It goes against the things that I'm tied to.
That's the point that I'm telling you. I'm saying so that when you, I'm saying
that's
that
different though from saying I'm just making up stuff.
It is that's what you're doing.
No, making up stuff is I have nothing behind me and I'm just going with my caprice and my vices. That's what's making up stuff.
Listen to what I'm saying. You're making up what the Injil is based on what someone gives you, based on your bias of what you like that you hear.
No.
Yes.
Because if you ask,
let me ask you this. I'm gonna prove it. I'm gonna prove it. I'm gonna prove it right now.
Yeah.
Watch this. How do you know?
Yeah.
That the passage that I read is actually the Injil or not? How do you know it even contains some of the Injil? How do you know that these stories were even in the Injil in the first place?
Well, I haven't necessarily affirmed anything. I just said it could be. I said potentially, possibly. I said possibly, yeah. It could
Thank
be.
you.
It could be,
so you're just...
But I also couldn't. So
You're literally proving my point.
No, I'm not proving your point. What I want people to understand is when you say I'm making up stuff, that's wrong sentencing. What you could say is, this Muslim is going along with whatever his Quran is telling him, and therefore that's two different ball games than saying he's just making up stuff.
I've been telling you that this whole time.
No, making up stuff. When you say making up stuff, is that I'm just pulling out.
You're making up what you think the Injil is based on what your Quran says.
No, but see, now the sentence, that's
if you see it, listen,
that's a different
if
sentence.
You see a story, no, it's the same. Listen, if you see a story in the Injil, in the Quran, and I give you that story outside of the Quran from a source you're going to cherry pick and reject after I read another verse, and you say that could possibly be the Injil, or yes, that contains some of the Injil.
Yeah.
You don't even know if that was ever in the Injil to begin with.
Yeah.
You just accepting what I've given you, and you just submitted and said, I don't know, possibly. Showing that Muslims can't identify the Injil. You just take whatever I give you, and you say, yes, some of it is and some of it isn't.
No, but the Injil, like, I don't know what Muslims you've spoken to, but Muslims don't usually claim to know what the Injil is, as in, like, they don't, because we don't have it.
Okay, well,
that's a very known fact.
Okay, well then how do they know where to find Muhammad in the Injil?
Well, I personally don't do that.
Well, you just quoted Matthew.
No, I said that's what Muslims say.
Well, I know
So,
you quoted what Muslims say. So why do you think Muslims go to Matthew to try to find Muhammad in the Injil if they don't know where it is?
If you ask me personally, that's not. Yeah, maybe yeah. But if you ask me personally, that's not my approach with the Bible. Remember, I told you.
So where would you go to find Muhammad in the Injil? We'll do 5 minutes and we can close out.
That's something I can't talk about.
Okay.
I can't talk about. So
cool. Well,
yeah.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
But yeah, I think personally, look, I understand that you're trying to make your point, but I think definitions are very, very important. And then when things are defined, trying to understand what is being defined, because whenever you speak to a Muslim, the Muslim is not just going to make up stuff. You know, the Muslim's not just going to make up stuff. I understand what you mean, as in you're a Christian, you don't agree with it.
No, bro.
No. Hold on, listen to me.
The Muslims not gonna make no stuff.
Look, we got like 5 minutes left in it.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm saying, look, I understand that as a Christian, you look at me as yes, you're making up stuff. But I'm telling you, I am not making up stuff. My basis is the Quran. Now you disagree with the Quran. We all know this, but it's not something that I'm just making up on my whims. There is a system. If you were to ask any Muslim here, do woman and man go to paradise, and they haven't listened to my our conversation, they would say the exact same thing. No, woman and man go to paradise. So if there's scripture that comes to us and says,
yeah, but that wasn't the point.
No, but that's the point I'm making.
Right, but that wasn't the point I was making. You got to address the point I made. And if it went over your head,
I was just rejecting the argument you made about me about making up stuff. That's not.
You admitted that you were doing it at least 3 times.
No, I didn't admit to anything. I said to you, I'm arguing right now with you that I'm not making up stuff, and you said I admitted it.
My position is that Muslims just take whatever is presented to them.
No, that's wrong. That's wrong.
Did he not say that that's what he was doing earlier?
No, yes. Look, no, hold on. And let me tell you something. If you were to say to me, you Muslims are just looking at the story and then you go back to the Quran, whatever the Quran is telling you, and then you you would still have your point. But to say that I'm making up stuff. That's
literally what you did.
No, I know, but you're not saying that. You're not saying that.
All right, man.
No, do you understand? You don't understand what I'm trying to say.
We good, bro.
No.
I think we're talking past each other, bro. I think we got it.
I'm just trying to be very specific. Because